Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to invite you all and welcome you to the agenda for the Wednesday, March 31st, 2021 Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. We have an announcement to make pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GLC 30AS 18, and the governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strong limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, as well as Mayor Curtatoni's declaration of emergency dated March 15th, 2020. This meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals will be conducted via remote participation. We will have an audio recording available upon request as soon as possible after the meeting. Thank you very much. I'd like to welcome everybody, and general business, we have none tonight, and there's no withdrawals or advertising, but we're going to go right to the public hearing. And the first case, and I believe we're reopening this case tonight. It's 0 Fremont Street. Madam Clerk, Danielle Evans, would you please open this for us?
0 Fremont Street. Fremont Street LLC proposes to construct a duplex in the NR district on a street slope or a steep slope, which requires a special permit.
Thank you. And who's here from the Fremont Street staff?
This is Charlotte speaking. Joe Salamone, I am unmuting you. If there's anyone else on the applicant team that you'd like me to unmute, just let me know.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. I'll start with a brief introduction, and then I'll get to the special permit considerations specific to a steep slope. The property consists of 5,657 square feet of vacant land in the neighborhood residential district. And the proposal, as was mentioned, is to construct a duplex style building type that is compatible with the characteristics of the surrounding area and land uses. A site plan was developed, architectural and landscape plans, and all of those were very thoughtfully created to preserve and enhance the slope of the land, and will also greatly enhance the neighborhood. This lot has been vacant for many years, and it has been sort of a dumping site to some extent, and it would be nice to have it developed. It's the only remaining lot on East Albion, on the corner of East Albion Street and Fremont Street. The lot has 128, little over 128 feet of frontage on East Albion Street and 56 feet of frontage on Fremont Street. The primary access to the house is from East Albion Street. The secondary access would be from Fremont Street, so the house faces East Albion Street. The house will be set back approximately 20 feet from the existing edge of pavement on East Albion Street and 10 feet from the street lot line on Fremont Street. And so the placement of the house is nicely aligned with the existing homes on both East Albion Street and Fremont Street. And the ground elevation was chosen to minimize the amount of excavation to construct the foundation. So getting to, I want to get into the special permit considerations regarding a steep slope, and this is addressing section 10.10 in the current zoning, and there's three elements in that basically considerations for steep slopes. One is to minimize the stormwater runoff. The second is maintain natural topography and drainage patterns of the land. And then the last one is to help protect the property at the base of the steep slope from damage caused by erosion and other harms. So to start with, the current design resulted
Madam
in a
Chair,
substantially smaller
Yes,
footprint than the
hello.
previous.
If I-
Excuse me, Mr. Salamone,
Yes,
hold on
Hi.
one second. Somebody wants to speak.
sure.
if I may, Counselor Klingon has asked if we,
You're breaking up, Charlotte. We can't hear you.
Counselor Klingon has asked if we could put the plans up on the screen. If I could ask the applicant to share his screen, is that acceptable?
Sure.
Great. Okay. Joe, I will make you a,
Is this, which plan, there's many pages to the plans, which page
Yeah.
would you like to see?
I would
The lands-
assume that the question is more as you're talking
The
about
landscape plan
documents
is
and referencing
represented.
things.
Can you see that?
We cannot yet see your screen, but you do have the ability to share it.
Okay.
Yes,
There it
we
is.
can see it. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Okay. Great.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Salamone.
Okay, thank you. This is, if I may, there was a previous design that was submitted under the old zoning, and the current design resulted in a substantially smaller footprint than the previous design. It actually is 13.7 or 13 and a half, roughly shorter in length, and occupies a much smaller footprint than the previous design that was filed under the old zoning. The lot area coverage of the current proposed building is roughly 30% versus the 65% that's allowed by zoning. So it's a pretty small, less than 1/3 of the lot area. The house will occupy less than 1/3 of the lot area. Much of the land, especially the westerly portion, is going to remain untouched. The site, the basement floor elevation, which I alluded to earlier, was chosen to minimize both the amount of excavation required and the height of the foundation wall in the rear of the house. This grade floor elevation is also very similar to that of the existing neighboring homes on the hillside side of East Albion Street, and will enable the construction of the standard height foundation wall. So the ground floor elevation is 110, and then it steps up the hillside. It's very similar to the houses, the neighboring houses. If you had an opportunity to look at the streetscape on Google Maps, you'd see essentially something very similar to this, where you have a small wall out in front of the property, on the property line in East Albion Street, some stairs going up to the ground floor elevation, and then the house, the foundation will actually step up the hillside. It'll be 110, starting off at 110, and then it'll step up to some other elevation, depending upon the site conditions, perhaps 114, and then 119 in the areaway out back, and then there's another short wall, and then there's a 3-to-1 slope beyond that. So again, very similar to the existing homes on East Albion Street. I had a foundation plan designed by a structural engineer. Even though this is a very standard foundation plan, there's nothing special about it. In other words, it's not a very tall foundation wall. Even though the grade is what it is, it's a standard foundation design. But I do have as I mentioned, a structural engineered plan that I submitted along with the DRA application and also along with the building permit application. The proposed architectural landscape, which is shown on the screen, the green score for that calculates out at 0.58 versus the minimum score of 0.35. And that will help to ensure that the natural topography and drainage patterns of the land are maintained. As I mentioned before, the westerly portion, the right-hand side of the property will remain natural, and the yard along Fremont Street to the left will be terraced with some short gravity walls. And the reason for that is just to reduce the existing slope is there's a natural runoff that occurs due to the slope. The reason for the terracing is to actually reduce that runoff from the existing condition. So it will improve. There should be zero runoff actually with this type of grading. The trees located directly on the site are Norway maples. They will remain. We didn't include them in the green score calculation. There's also credits were also not included for a tree for a red oak, which has a diameter, a DBH of 26. That's just off the property line over to the far right. That's going to be preserved and protected with a tree protection fence during construction. And that detail is also shown on sheet L3 of the green score document that was submitted with the application. Out back along my abutters lot line, number 80, the only abutter that I have, which is number 88 Fremont Street, there's a row of 9 emerald green arborvitaes that will be planted along that interior lot line to create a natural buffer. And then the remaining proposed plantings are all native. So it should be a relatively sustainable site, easy to maintain. To continue on with the landscape plan, the proposal calls for permeable pavers to be used out back and then also in the walkway areas. So all the hardscapes will be permeable, and the details of those pavers is shown on sheet L2 of the green score calculations document that was submitted. And as I mentioned before, there's very short pre-engineered landscape gravity walls that are proposed to reduce the natural occurring runoff due to the slope. And a 4-foot gravity wall is proposed along the East Albion street lot line, much like the existing walls that I mentioned along the frontage of adjacent properties. Next, I would like to just briefly talk about stormwater management, because I had my civil engineer create a very detailed stormwater management report, and that was submitted with the DRA application, development review application, and as well as the building permit. There is stormwater capture and infiltration, which will be achieved with the installation of 2 separate subsurface infiltration systems that are designed to capture all of the roof runoff. There's one, and that's not shown on this landscape plan, but it is shown on the site plan. There's one on the left and one on the right, one on each side of the house. The details of the infiltrators are provided on sheet 2 of the site plan that was submitted. But essentially, the conclusion of that report, what it does is the HydroCAD report models the pre-construction condition versus post-construction condition for the entire site area. The stormwater design reduces the peak runoff and volume for the 2, 10, 25, and 100-year storm events. The drainage calculations are based on the soil analysis that is shown on sheet 2 of the site plan. So in conclusion, the proposed site condition for off-site runoff volume and peak flow rate has been reduced over the existing condition for all storm events. And one other point of information regarding that is that the capacity of the infiltrators that was sized to accommodate the previously larger house footprint will remain the same. We're not going to change. We don't propose to scale them back. So therefore, that will create additional capacity to accommodate any unforeseen stormwater events. In other words, they're oversized for the amount of water that they'll be handling. And that's all I have regarding the plans. If there's any questions, or if you want me to talk about the architectural design, but I thought since the special permit was regarding the slope, that I would focus on that aspect of the design.
Great. Thank you very much. So is there, while the applicant is still there, do you want him to elaborate on anything else right now? Or shall we see if there's anybody from the public that wanted to weigh in? Anybody want to have Joe continue speaking? Raise your hand. Seeing none, great. So at this point, Charlotte, unless you have something you want to add, would like to open it up if there's anybody in the audience that wanted to have some questions of the applicant or us.
Dan, if there's anything you want to add, although you can also do that after public comment. I think Dan will wait until after public comment. So I see Peter Sutton raising his hand. Peter Sutton, I'm unmuting you. For anyone who has not been to a ZBA meeting before, the way that you indicate that you wish to speak is there's a little, it looks like a hand. And if you click that, it'll notify staff that you have raised your hand, and we can then unmute you one by one to let you speak. So Peter, I can see that you're unmuted. Please make your comments.
Okay, hi, this is Peter Sutton's wife. We're both together, actually. I'm Roberta Beauchamp at 88 Fremont Street. So I just had a couple questions based on the last neighborhood meeting that we had down at the school, maybe last year sometime. We had a question about the height of the roof. I understand from the plans it's like 153 feet. But that doesn't, I think there was going to be something drawn up for neighbors to look at to see how the height would compare to other houses on East Albion, and we haven't really seen that. Like, looking out of our second floor bedroom window, are we going to be seeing only roof or half of a roof? Like, we don't have a sense of the height of it. That's one of our questions.
May I answer that?
Yes, please do.
Okay, thank you. We actually do have an elevation that shows the height, the overall height of the building. There was also a drawing that showed the height relative to your house, Roberta. And I think it's in an, I'm not sure if it made it into this version of the document, but I can certainly provide that. We do have that drawing that was prepared
that would be
that
good.
meeting.
I didn't see it as part of the.
Okay, I can try to pull it up. If you bear with me for a moment. May I do that?
Sure.
Okay.
Hello, this is Susan Fontano. I have a question if anybody can answer it. How many neighborhood meetings were there?
There was one.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so can you see the screen?
Yep.
And this
We all
again,
can as well.
excuse me?
Yep. We can as well.
Okay, great. So this is what I have for a vantage point from, well, from different vantage points, I guess. The one in the top left-hand quadrant is East Albion Street. And Roberta, your house is just behind the building.
Yep.
Now, this house was the design that I mentioned before that was longer than the current one, so that it's been scaled back considerably. The footprint has been scaled back considerably.
Okay.
And
On
it's
the
also-
lower left, I'm sorry,
Excuse
the lower left seems to be more, I think that's our house to the left there, the mansard. Could you zoom into that? I'm just trying to see it.
So the bottom left
Laptop is
quadrant?
tiny. Yes.
Okay, sure. Now that has actually been the house, because the new zoning requires taller floor heights, stories.
Yeah.
It is actually a little bit taller than, in other words, yeah, than what's shown here, because you were asking what you're going to be looking at. Am I going to
Yeah.
be looking at a roof or something?
The
So
roof,
this
yeah.
is, I think, a couple of feet lower than it would be, because we had to increase the story heights to 9 feet, I believe, was the
Okay.
minimum requirement that zoning requires.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yeah, no, it is. It's helpful. I mean, just to know what to anticipate.
Right.
I'm not sure if this might be the form to ask, but a quick question's just in anticipation as a neighbor, a butter. How much time do you think will it take from construction, groundbreaking to the completion, and like how the hours and days will they be working late at night or on weekend, just to be prepared for construction?
Typically, when there's a special permit, the hours are restricted. No working on Saturday.
Okay.
And so those.
Through the chair, if I may jump in and give a
Yes,
staff
Charlotte.
perspective. So
Yes.
construction hours are, the applicant is correct that special permits under the old ordinance, we did often regulate construction hours. It is actually the purview of the Inspectional Services Department to regulate construction hours, timing, methods of construction, making sure that neighbors are not unduly impacted by construction. So that would be, if you have any concerns about construction impacts, it would be best to reach out to ISD.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Danielle Evans, please.
Charlotte, are you saying that the conditions that we used to impose before, that we can't do that anymore?
It's not that you cannot impose them anymore. It is that it is not standard to impose them. If you wish to impose construction hours, you may, but it is not automatic. I don't want to say automatically recommended. It is not typically recommended by staff in the way that on old permit conditions it often was.
Okay, because I think personally that the hours that construction are allowed currently in this city are terrible. I think they're way too long. I mean, they go till, was it 7 o'clock at night? Like no one has any quiet enjoyment of their home when they're surrounded by construction. And until that actual ordinance is changed, I would like to see our board continue to impose stricter standards that allow for a quality of life of people living in the city next to construction. So I would want to add a condition.
If I may, Councillor Klingon is indicating that he would wish to speak, and I'm wondering if it's about this topic.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Charlotte, for this opportunity to speak. I wanted to just jump in because I think there might be a little, I think we're all adjusting to the new zoning and the process around whereby projects get discussed and how the process is laid out. This particular meeting is regarding the slope. So to the residents' question, to the folks' question. There will be a meeting, like once this is on, and Dan can jump in because he knows the process better than anybody, but my understanding is that, there'll be a site plan review, and then there'll be a public meeting baked into the whole process to answer all the questions around construction time and stuff like that.
Okay.
If it's the wish of the ZBA to put those restrictions in, I don't know how that works, and Dan can probably weigh in on that as well. But I have no problem with that. I think that it's perfectly reasonable to hold on to that that ability as a board and put that in. But I just wanted the Suttons to know that there was, under the new zoning, he hasn't triggered any meetings yet, other than this public hearing about the slope ordinance. And so as far as the height going up, that's part of the new zoning. So but we can certainly address any issues in a community meeting.
If
Thank
I
you.
Okay,
may,
that sounds great. Thank you.
if I may, Madam Chair.
Yes, please.
So this is actually the only public hearing that this case requires. 0 Fremont Street is in the NR district. And so if it were not for the steep slope and the requirement of a steep slope special permit, this project would be entirely by right and would not have any required public hearings, public meetings, community meetings, any of that. So if there are concerns about potential impacts of this project, this meeting is the venue to address those concerns at. There will not be the site plan approval process that is required in many of the
Okay.
more dense, larger.
Well, that's my mistake. And
We're all getting used to it.
well, no, I don't understand why this would be, we redid the zoning. I don't understand why this would be, you said NR, right? Neighborhood residential. I thought that it still triggered a community meeting after a site plan review.
No, so in the neighborhood residential district, the only time that a neighborhood meeting is required is when, in the few circumstances that site plan approval is required. Specifically, I'm thinking of if you're adding a backyard cottage, that requires site plan approval. But other than that, there are the occasional special permits like this one, or hardship variances, which are kind of their own category. But other than that, most projects in the NR and in the UR district can be done without any public hearings, provided that they conform to the requirements of the ordinance, which in this case, this one does.
So, but not public hearings. I'm talking about community meetings as well.
Community.
So community meetings would not be required for this project if it were not for the steep slope, which triggers the public hearing requirement.
Okay, so to anybody in the public who's listening, if you have any issues with this particular project, now is the time to speak up. I know we had a meeting prior to the new zoning that was required, and we weighed in a lot on this project. And then since the new zoning was passed, certainly there's been changes to it. And again, I guess this is by right. I thought that it was all districts required a neighborhood meeting. I'll talk to my colleagues about that. But in the meantime, if there's any particular things, requirements you'd like to ask the ZBA to consider putting on with regards to time and of construction and stuff, now's the time.
I mean,
Mr.
yeah,
Susan,
then.
1 second. Danielle, as of late, we've been doing Monday through Friday, 7 to 7. Do you know, do you recall, anybody on the board here? I thought we would do Monday through Friday, nothing on Saturdays and Sundays. And I knew it was 7 a.m., but I didn't know the PM. Is it 7 p.m. as well?
Are you
Is that-
talking about what the city ordinance is?
Yeah,
For
I mean, and what we
The
were, what we,
city- the
we-
city currently permits work to go until 7,
right.
Monday through Friday, which is bonkers in my opinion, with the amount of construction that happens. Saturdays, I can't think of it off the top of my head. I know it starts later, I think 9. And then
Charlotte, do you know?
I do not know off the top of my head what the construction hours are. If you would like me to look it up, I can do
Yeah,
that.
while we're talking, that'd be nice. And,
Yes, I will.
okay, so as far as Roberta, Mrs. Sutton's concerned, are you through, ma'am? We answered.
I think for that, I mean, I know you're looking it up now as far as hours. Then we had also, I looked at the plan under the general notes. It talked about how for damage, because I think our foundation is going to be about 10 feet away from their new construction. So it says that the contractor will be responsible for damage. I understand that, which is great, but is there any provision for like an inspector to come in before construction to look at, you know, check out our foundation and then make sure, because if there's anything that happens, you know, we might want to have a pre-inspection thing saying that it happened because of construction and not because it was already there. You know what I mean? That's another concern because we're so close to the construction.
I thought, I don't know if Dan's still on board, if you can hear this, Dan. I thought way back when there was people doing work next to my house, and I went up to City Hall and they pulled out what they called a bond of something. Is that what you still do, or should these neighbors sit down with Mr. Salamone and talk to them one-on-one on their concerns? I mean, at this level, what we're approving, some of her questions, like you say, they don't pertain to us. How would we, in a positive fashion, advise this neighbor? And it sounds like that, Mr. Salamone, they've done some real nice research. They've changed some stuff up. Because I remember when this first came in front of us way back when. So should this neighbor that they're already planting the nice plantings next to their property and stuff, should they not meet with him as opposed to, you know, one-on-one instead of not a neighborhood meeting, but they obviously have some real concerns where they're right next door. What do we think about that? I mean, it's not our place per se, but can we advise them in a positive fashion? Anybody?
So I can, while Dan's thinking about that, I can answer the question about what the noise ordinance requires for construction hours, because that is where construction hours are regulated by the city. So
Right.
as of June 4th, 2020, Muni Code says that construction hours are limited to 7 a.m. or sorry, yeah, limited to 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. on weekdays and 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Saturdays and some random other days, and none at all on Sunday.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Madam
Dan?
Chair,
Yes.
I haven't seen a bond be attached or required of a project for a while now. I would have to go get some more information. You're not wrong though, that is a possibility. Making them provide a performance bond in case damage is caused to the neighboring foundation. They could also deal with this in a private agreement between two property owners also. Either one of those could work.
That's what I would suggest at this point. Mr. Solomon, do you
Yes,
have, would you like to meet with the Suttons at some point? Is this something you guys can work out and leave us out of it?
Yes,
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
So Roberta's, yeah, go ahead. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
that would be fine also.
Yes,
Okay.
and one of the things, this is covered under the building code as well. Safeguards during construction for neighboring or abutting properties. And I'm very familiar with that part of the building code. And typically the way that would work is there would be a pre-construction survey, as Roberta alluded to. She was asking if someone would come and look at it, and certainly we would do a pre and post-construction survey just to make sure that there is no damage caused as a direct result of the construction
Okay.
that's going on. So
All right, well,
I'm
you
happy to
guys,
do that.
Great. No, that
Solomon,
sounds great.
guys
Thank you.
Yeah, Roberta, so you and Joe get together. I think if you need to get numbers, maybe Charlotte can help you with that.
We have
So-
his contact.
Good.
That's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so that portion's all taken care of. Thank you, Charlotte. Thank you, Dan.
Thank
Um,
you.
Okay, hon, good night. About the noise ordinance, Danielle, are you happy to let them go with the flow for now, or did you want to let them work out their thing, what they can talk about? And then we'll go to another person.
I mean,
Danielle?
I don't know.
All right, we'll
Can
think
you-
about it. All right, we'll come back to you. All right, so now, so you know it's Monday through Friday, 7 to 7, Saturday, 9 to 7, and Sunday's optional. They might want to talk about that with the
Not
neighbors.
optional, it's prohibited.
Prohibited. Okay. All right. Now, do we have somebody else, Charlotte, with their hand raised?
If anyone would like to speak, please raise your hand. But right now, I do not see anyone with their hand raised.
Okay. Um,
Counselor Klingon actually raised his hand. Counselor, you're already unmuted.
hello.
Thank you. Yeah, just hello. How are you, Madam Chair? Hello,
Great.
everybody.
Nice to hear from
So-
you.
Nice to hear from you as well. So, yeah, I know I jumped in a little bit on a few things, but I really just want to kind of give an overall, couple of words on this particular project. It's been in the works for quite some time. It got kind of pushed back with the new zoning. We had some great community meetings. Some things were worked out with parking spaces and et cetera. Everybody in the community seemed to be okay with it, and then when it didn't make it into before the new zoning, the applicant had to make some changes to make it higher. That was one of our concerns as far as following the new zoning and how that would affect, particularly there's only one abutter, the Suttons, and so I hope that outside of that, I think that the applicant has really gone above and beyond to reach out to the neighbors in the area and do his due diligence. One of the things I said in one of the community meetings, in the community meeting that we had at the Healy, was that I wanted to know how the applicant was going to go about construction. So if there was any type of pile driving type of thing, basically speaking directly to the concern as to whether or not there would be damage to the abutters' foundations and such. I've seen that happen in my ward. It's a huge concern of mine. So I'm glad to hear that the applicant and the abutters can get together and work that out. Otherwise, I mean, I think it's a great project, and I'll follow up with the Suttons myself and with anybody else in the community who has any issues. But basically, I support this project overall, with a few minor caveats being the concerns of the neighbors right in the general area. So that's all I want to say, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you for coming. We'd like to, you counselors have your finger right on the pulse of your area, so you've got to come and speak to us and let us know whether you think it's good for your area or not. So we appreciate you taking the time tonight and clarifying that for us. Have a good night.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. This is the funny thing, this is a particularly strange area because it's literally on the Medford line. It's literally a wooded area right now, and it's very unique. It's kind of been, again, like shuffled around, and there's been some issues with the address and so on. So quite frankly, I would have liked a more robust process, but with the change in the zoning and the way things went down, here we are. So I hope that we can make this happen and make sure all abutters are satisfied with the outcome. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Good night. Charlotte, anybody else raise their hand while the counselor was speaking?
I do not see anyone else with their hand raised, Madam Chair.
Okay, so at this point, I'm going to close the public portion and open it up to the board for your comments and questions. Anybody have a question? Yes, Elaine Severino, please.
I just need a question to clear up. I'm a little confused about the parking in the narrative, the development narrative, page 2, it talked about on-street parking. And I didn't know if that word on was supposed to be off. So, and I see the 4 spaces, and I
It's
know
off.
it went from 3 to 4, but the 4 that are right in front on East Albion Street,
Yeah,
is that on the property, the lot itself? Or is it on East Albion Street?
Mr.
Through you, Madam
Solomon?
Chair, if I may.
Yep,
The parking spaces are on East Albion Street. The landscape plan, the property line is actually right here where this blue line is. That's the property line. And no, I'm sorry, that's not the property line. The property line is right here at the beginning of the walkways.
where the shrubs,
Yeah,
yes.
exactly. And then these parking spaces are on East Albion Street.
So those are public.
Well, it's a private street, yes, they are. It's a private street, but it's not on private property. They're off the lot.
Elaine?
Does that answer the question?
Well, yes, I was just very concerned. When I was down there for a site visit, the property directly across the street had cars all lined up in front of it.
Right.
I stopped sort of by a little beyond those stairs that come down, and I don't have a very large car, and it's really narrow. So I don't know how in the world, if there's parking on the public street for this new project, and the people across the street are parked there, I can't possibly see how people are going to get in and get out, as well as fire apparatus. It was just so tight, and there were no cars parked in front of the wooded lot, or the lot filled with weeds right now. I didn't pull in very far. I pulled in just the nose, and then I kind of backed down Fremont, the other end of Fremont, and then headed back out to get out of there. So when 4 cars are parked for the new project and all the cars are lined up across the street, I think it's going to be problematic for fire engines to get in there, or ambulances.
Through you, Madam Chair.
Yes.
I just put up this should clarify it. The existing edge of pavement is this line. Can you see the pointer on my screen?
Yes,
This is the current edge of pavement along this line. This pavement is going to be extended to accommodate these parking spaces. So the roadway is actually 40 feet wide. It's not fully improved 40 feet, but this area where you see this radius line that intersects this other line, this is all additional space that's going to be graded to accommodate these 4 parking spaces. So you're absolutely correct that the street, the way it exists today, this wouldn't work. So it has to be widened in that area to accommodate those parking spaces.
and it will be.
Does that answer the question?
Elaine?
So they're going to widen the street, so it's going to go onto the private property then? How do you widen a street without going into public property?
Well, okay, so this is the lot line over here.
Sorry.
The lot line, and this is the existing edge of pavement. So it's the street is not fully paved from one side to the other. So this allows the roadway to be widened just in this area to accommodate the parking spaces.
But beyond that, Elaine, is the whole street. It's not going to be paved. It's private.
Right.
It's an unpaved street.
Well,
It's
it's
gonna be-
paved. It's paved.
It
It's
is
just
paved. It's paved
the
right
edge of
now.
the pavement. Let me bring up another page.
So I was just wondering, where is the widening process happening? It is paved right now.
Right.
And is the widening going to happen on the side where the new construction is going?
Yes, here it is, right here in this area where I'm going back and forth with the pointer.
So when there's a car parked in the one of those or all four of those new spaces, and there are 4 cars parked across the street from the existing houses on East Albion, what is the footage from car to car?
Well, there will be no addition, there will be no encroachment, for lack of a better word, into the existing roadway. In other words, these spaces will not encroach into the existing roadway. There'll be, this area is going to be created, or the roadway will be enlarged, widened to accommodate these spaces. So there will be no additional it won't be restricted any more than it is right now. It's not going to change the spacing between the roadway that exists now is not going to be impeded by these parking spaces.
So there will be enough space for emergency vehicles to get there if there were 4 cars in that space and 4 cars across the street. A fire engine could fit in between?
Yes, it's done now. I mean, it's not going to change from the existing conditions. The roadway is not going to be reduced in width. It's going to remain, it's actually going to be enlarged. If these cars weren't there, it'll be actually wider. Now, we did have another proposal, but this was to have off-street parking, but this was the preferred approach to minimize any further, excavation into the property. And this was what the neighborhood, this is what we, the neighborhood wanted. They wanted this scenario, this type of parking. We actually
And
had,
how will excuse me.
go ahead.
How will those 4 spaces be totally deemed for that construction? If I went down there to visit somebody across the street in one of the existing houses, could I park in one of those spaces?
Those parking spaces are for the residents on that street, this portion of East Albion Street is a private street. And so all the neighbors, all the abutters on this section of the street have the right to park in these spaces.
Okay,
They're
so
not
somebody,
dedicated, they're not specifically dedicated for this property. There would be shared spaces with the two neighbors across the street.
okay.
And yeah, so these 2 homes, actually, there is a plan that shows the other, and move down to the site plan. Okay, so these can you see the screen? Is the screen still visible?
Yes.
Okay, so 61, 59, and 100, and then the new house would all be able to share those parking spaces.
So the 8 spots are up for grabs.
Pretty much. I mean, that's the way it is now. I mean, there's parking there for the residents, and these are 4 additional parking spaces that don't exist today.
Right. So that's it,
Okay.
Elaine. There'll be 4 and 4. There'll be 8 spots for the new and the old.
Mhm.
They're right in that street. It's like a private street.
Correct.
All set, Elaine?
Yes.
Can I go back to Danielle, please, about the noise ordinance? Danielle,
Hi.
for the
Um,
construction hours?
Well, I think we should focus on the slope stuff right now, or the findings that we have to make.
Okay. So anybody else have something they'd like to say or have a question or something clarified? Catherine shaking no. Josh, are you all set? Yes. Ann, all set? Good. And I'm all set. It's up. Danielle, are you all set? Sloping?
So we should discuss as a board if we agree with the findings in the staff report.
Well, I'm going to ask that in one moment, but I just wanted to get back to you on that same question. So I'm going to pose to the board that, do you have any concerns? Have you required the consideration and agree with the findings of the staff report? Is that a yes? Everybody saying yes? Shake your heads. I think I'm looking at still pictures here. Catherine, you're all set. Elaine, you're all set. Josh, yes. Susan, yes. Ian, yes. Miss Danielle.
I just have a question, maybe I missed it. So there's a front retaining wall at the front of the property, and that is to, do we know that, so does the city engineer think that this will, this is strong enough to, is this actually retaining earth? Or was it? Because the third finding is that to help protect real property at the base of a steep slope from damage caused by erosion, mudslides, rock slides, falling trees, and other harms. So say, there's a rain event and the slope isn't, properly stabilized yet. Maybe the vegetation hasn't grown in and, a tree, is uprooted. And if it went down the slope, is it going to get caught at that retaining wall and not careen into the people at the base of the slope across the street? I mean, is that the finding that we're supposed to make?
Is Dan here? Dan?
Can you hear me, Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
Yes, the proposed design has made a good faith effort at managing the stormwater site drainage to the degree that you and relevant city departments don't have any concerns about the development.
Beautiful. Thank you. Danielle, you happy with that?
Yes, I mean, as long as, the city engineering staff, thought that that was
Sure.
sufficient. So if we granted the permit and engineering thought that there was still some work that needed to be done, does that need to come back to us, or is this, if we grant the special permit, then they could, impose, other changes to the site plan? I'm still trying to, I think this is the first time we've had to issue one of the special permits under this section. So I just want to make sure we're doing it right.
Dan?
Through you,
Yes.
through you, this probably needs explained a little bit more than what I could do in the memo. The steep slope special permit was created prior to the city council and the city engineer creating what's called a site construction permit, which is 100% created to deal with site engineering and stormwater management. The scale of the project determines the scale of stormwater management interventions that are required by that permit. So they established a standard across the city for small, medium, and large projects. Any project that taps into the city's storm system is considered a large project and has to do on-site mitigation at varying degrees. So the report back from the city engineer's office is that, in their opinion, almost in every circumstance, the first consideration of the steep slope permit will be dealt with because they created that new site construction permit that deals with those types of issues specifically. The last two are about the appearance of a sloping topography, as well as maintaining natural drainage. The staff all agrees with the applicant that the 1/2 of the lot is practically remaining untouched. And then the third one is that they have made a lot of efforts at grading the site and using various other erosion control that the city engineer's office did not have specific concerns about the proposed design on the lot. Today, they did provide us with 3 recommendations for conditions, which I can read into the record if you would like to hear them right now.
Would you folks like to hear that? Dan, yes, please.
So today they recommended to us that the conditions include the provision of a sidewalk and resurfacing of East Albion Street from the intersection with Fremont Street to the Albion dead end, with the final design being approved by relevant city departments. That city street design is a combined effort by a couple departments. The second one is to replace the pedestrian stairs of the unimproved section of Fremont Street next to the property. And then the last one is to inspect the East Albion Street sewer and replace as required by the city engineer. They pointed out that the sewer system of East Albion Street is what they believe to be a clay pipe over 100 years old, and that might be fine, but it needs to be inspected and replaced if it's not.
Great. So we have these 3 in front of us. So as we go forward tonight, we would incorporate this in the verbiage of when we're making the motion? Or is that not necessary, Mr. Bartman?
We did not include any recommended conditions when we posted the staff memo, so I would assume that this would need a motion to accept the city engineer's recommended conditions.
Okay, great. And Danielle, do you have those?
Yes.
Madam Chair,
Ian Brockelman, yes?
if I can say something to summarize how I understand what we're doing, it seems like we are saying that from the limited information that we have, conceptually and even intuitively, it seems like it would be okay. I mean, we're not engineers. We're not looking at the calcs. Number 3, consistency of site disturbance to minimize stormwater runoff. We actually don't know, right? It just appears as if the slope is, they're not doing anything crazy like digging out the whole site, and doing a giant retaining wall in the back of the site. So I just want to be clear that we're not, it's just a little bit cart before the horse, right? We are saying that it looks conceptually okay. There are no red flags. It's following the topography. A lot of the sites maintained massing wise, and we will then rely on the city engineer, the site construction permit to then do the due diligence.
Correct.
Or else we would want to look at calculations and analysis. Does everyone agree with my understanding of this?
I do.
Thank you.
Dan's shaking his head. Yes, everybody can see each other. Yes. So we're going forward, and we're then finally at the end of the day, putting this in the hands of our engineers and our experts with the city to sign off. Okay? Thank you, Ann. Danielle, you have anything else to add to that?
No, I mean, I just agree. It is a lot of cart before the horse. It's kind of like, I just still don't understand why this is in the zoning ordinance, because it's engineering.
Yeah.
Either it's by right, but it's on a steep slope. But to build on a steep slope, it needs this, what is this permit called? This new permit? It's a stormwater and erosion permit, which I'm really glad that we have. It seems like it's redundant for us to even be here at this point.
If I may, Madam Chair.
Yes, please, Dan.
That may be the case now that the site construction permit has been created. I mentioned that the steep slope permit was added to the ordinance prior to the site construction permit, which is actually required not just for steep slope projects, but almost everything in the city that alters the stormwater that falls on the property has to do some version of a site construction permit to address the stormwater aspects. So that didn't exist when we invented this. And since it came into existence, a lot of the concerns will be addressed between the building permit and the site construction permit.
Madam
Okay.
Chair.
Yes, Ann Brockelman?
I think just for the sake, since this is new to us, for the sake of discussion, Danielle, I could see a project where I wouldn't want it to even go to the city engineer. Like if they completely blasted it off the slope and did something crazy, even if they could prove calculations wise, or they put stormwater retainage, through mechanical means, tank, all that, I would still be against that, because that, even though engineering wise they can make it work, right, hold the water, they're completely changing the face of the city, and not, it's also is it substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood, keeping the character. I think there's that aspect of it as well, that I think we could not approve it to go ahead to the city engineer. I mean, I'm just kind of playing the scenario out. So I think, here it seems that our role may not be needed, but I could see other cases where we may disagree and not want to grant this permit.
Yeah. Josh, you have something you want to add? No? Okay. Catherine, everybody? I see too. It's like we're saying, you're asking us to approve something that's not our expertise, the engineering aspect of this. And so it's got to be in here someplace that, we're approving this on this with the understanding that the city engineering will be signing off on this, and that's where the responsibility lies. Okay. So, any other comments or? So, all right, so you all agree with the findings, and we're gonna add these three, Danielle's gonna add these three conditions per Brian Holtz, right? And also then I'm gonna ask the board if they want to apply the staff recommendation permit conditions. Yes, that would be this here. And any other conditions we see? Anything you want to add to anything on the report to have it listed? No? Okay. And then that's it then. So we're going to move forward with this tonight. Are you all content to go forward with this and approve this tonight? And adopt the considerations we have in the report? Is that a yes from everybody? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. So now Danielle, you have your little text in front of you there? Yes?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I don't want to step on your toes. Speak right up, please, whatever you want to do.
Okay, so following public testimony, review of the submitted materials, and deliberations of the required considerations outlined by the Somerville zoning ordinance, I motion to approve the special permit for a steep slope special permit, and adopting the conditions that were provided by the city engineer and read into the record by Dan Bartman at the meeting tonight.
Great. Also, for the record, I would like to mention that the public portion was closed after hearing the family, Peter Sutton's wife, Roberta, and they're going to work out with the applicant, Mr. Salamone. And may I please have a second on the motion? In the matter
Second.
of, wait a second. So in the matter of, I want to get this right for the record. In the matter of CZ 2020-000006, that's 0 Fremont Street, for the special permit for the steep slope, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Elaine Severino. We'll go around by name. Ann Brockelman, yay or nay?
Yay.
Okay, Josh Safdie. Elaine Severino.
Aye.
Catherine Garavaglia.
Aye.
And Susan Fontano, aye, and Danielle Evans.
Hi.
Aye. Let the record show we had a unanimous attendance tonight and all was in favor. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Good luck.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Good evening. Ms. Charlotte?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Is not showing anything else. Is there any other business anybody would like to present? No. Seeing and hearing none, I'd ask for a motion to close the meeting of Wednesday, March the 31st, 2020 at 7:14 PM.
Motion to
Yep.
adjourn.
Motion to adjourn
Second.
from Danielle, seconded by Elaine Severino. All in favor, Ann Brockelman,
Aye.
Josh Safdie,
Aye.
Elaine Severino,
Aye.
Catherine Garavaglia,
Aye.
and Danielle Evans,
Aye.
and Susan Fontano, aye. Unanimous. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.